If your organization is waiting for permission at every turn, it's already falling behind. In today's fast-moving world, survival depends on more than strategy. It depends on agency. The kind that empowers people to act, speak up, and take ownership like they're the CEO of their own role. Let's have ourselves some pocket-sized pep talk because the future belongs to teams where leadership isn't reserved for the org chart. It's expected from every seat. It's time to evolve how we work or risk getting left behind.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guests, Fred Miller and Judith Katz, has spent over 40 years partnering together at the Khalil Jamieson Consulting Group, Inc., creating organizations betterment that accelerates results and delivers higher organizational performance. Together, Fred and Judith are thought leaders and have co-authored 7 books, including the first book on inclusion, The Inclusion Breakthrough, in 2002, and their latest book, The Power of Agency, Cultivating Autonomy, Authority, and Leadership in Every Role. Happy to have you with us and welcome to the show, Judith, and welcome back, Fred, to the show.
Thank you, Rob. It's an absolute pleasure.
Good. And I'm telling you, Fred, you're in rare air, my man. We don't bring a whole lot of people back, but we bring Fred back, and he's brought Judith with him. So I'm really excited about this. And I want to dive in with you two. And I want to start with getting a simple but important definition out of the way. Define your use of agency.
Happy to. Well, first of all, I loved everything you said as we started. So, that you kind of captured it right there, Rob, in terms of what agency is all about. Because if you're waiting, you lose. But here's our definition. It's really ensuring all people of all roles, all levels, all tenures, and identities have power, influence, and voice to make choices and decisions related to their jobs, right? And to put them into the organization. So it's not only about me, it's not only about my work, but it's also about contributing to the mission, vision, and strategy of the organization. So it's really having like that ownership mindset. It's really saying, if this is my company, what would I do? And it's really, the autonomy, authority, leadership. It's really saying no matter what my seat is, I can be a leader in my job. So that's the definition.
And this is a real shift for when people were considered a cog in the wheel. Right. And you had your little piece of work, and that's what you did. Don't ask questions. Don't raise your hand. Just do your job and shut up. That's the way it was, and that's the way it still is in some places. And we're saying that's not going to work. This generation doesn't want it. High performance that can't handle it. If you want to have a high-performing organization, you got to get all the brilliance in the organization fully functioning and feeling free to do their jobs and bring their wisdom to other things. We're at risk in our organizations if we continue to keep that industrial revolution mindset as how we run our organizations.
Okay, makes sense. But I always wanted to start a show with this one question. I never ask authors, gee, how did you find this book? I ask them how this book found you. There's usually a story involved. So I'm curious, you both, in your answers, I've already got check, passionate about this topic. How did it find you two?
I was sitting in an airport waiting for one of those many planes that I end up flying on. And I was just observing. I was in the waiting area, waiting to board. And I was just observing the waiting area, as I often do, to amuse myself and pass the time. And I saw this young parent and a toddler. And the toddler started walking around. And for many people, if the toddler starts walking around, they grab the toddler, make him sit in the seat and say, be quiet and stay in your place. But this parent didn't do that. This parent let the toddler walk around, and every danger area, the parent would stand between the toddler and the danger area. So when there was a pair of steps, the toddler would stand at the top of the steps, so the parent would stay at the top of the steps so the toddler wouldn't go down there. Or if there's a machine or whatever. And I realized that toddler has agency. That toddler feels empowered. That toddler feels like I can move in this world. And that parent's responsibility was, I got to create some safety, some guardrails, some blocks so that toddler doesn't hurt themselves. And I'm like, that's not what we're doing in our organizations. We're smothering people in our organizations. We're not letting them explore and learn and bring their brilliance. We're saying, be in this box. You will be in this box, and the whole world is a better place.
The only thing I would add to that is, and then on the academic side, or on the book side, it was like, we keep on thinking about what's beyond inclusion. Like, what's next? Inclusion is not an endpoint. It's a element in terms of what's needed for people to feel like they belong in an organization. But there's got to be something else. And we really were struggling with that. And it was like people having agency, both individually and teams. And it was kind of really thinking about, what's that word for people being able to take actions, not just about my belonging, but my responsibility, my ability to contribute. Yeah. And so we were really struggling with like, what's next in terms of organizational betterment and making organizations higher performing.
It all makes sense. And I don't know if you've ever saw this study, and it was some years ago by John Stossel did a piece on happiness. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to figure out things. And one of the most fascinating pieces of the study dealt with a toddler. Okay. And I mean like a 2-year-old. Okay. And what they were trying to determine was what was making this child happy. So they allowed the child to see pictures that would flash by. And they taught the child, took a little bit, how to control the flow of those pictures. Okay. Which made the child very happy. Now, they then took it away. Then they said, okay, this thing doesn't work anymore. And the child was upset, not terribly upset. Okay. But when they brought those pictures back randomly and the child lost control, in other words, was seeing the pictures but couldn't control the flow of the pictures, that's when the tears began to flow.
Wow.
That really upset them because the child had lost what control they had.
There it is.
Yeah.
So you see, Fred and Judith, you're on top of something, and we got a great root source: children.
But children always have the answer.
in our organizations, how many people every day have those internal tears as they're trying to live? They came to a job, they came to do something, they came to try to accomplish something, and they get blocked and blocked and blocked. Permission, check. And those internal tears are like, this is not working for me. I am not able to be my full self here. I'm in a box here.
Right.
And those internal tears are there for many people. And that's a high cost.
Yeah. When we don't feel in control, it is alarming. And, so many businesses think when people come and go, oh, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. I see you two shaking your heads. No, there's a lot more to it.
It's like, it's always about, I want to spend more time with my family. Like, okay, we all want to spend more time with our family, but that doesn't mean everybody quits the job. There's something else going on there.
Right. All right, let's move to your basic premise about creating a leader in every seat, what that looks like in practice, and then how it changes the way a team works day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to take a shot at this one?
Yeah, one example is we were working with a CEO, and we had put together a project team that was going to work on the organization betterment. We're going to talk about organization betterment versus organizational change, because nobody really wants to be changed, but people want to be better. So we started talking about our work as a betterment effort and a betterment change. And so we had put together a betterment team that was going to look at the organization. They were meeting with the CEO to say, here we are, what's our parameters, what are the guardrails and whatever. And he said to them, my goal and my commitment to you is when you come back with your recommendations, I'm going to be thinking yes and trying hard to say yes. Well, that group's mind was blown away. And they felt more agency and more ability to be creative than they ever had felt in their careers. So part of this is leaders saying, I hired these people. They're knowledge workers. These are the best and the brightest we could find. Now I'm going to treat them like they're not. And that's what a lot of people experience. And so we're trying to flip that and say, leaders, either trust your people or don't. If you don't trust your people, get different people.
Right.
But you got to have people you trust so you're not micromanaging them.
Right. Judith.
And middle managers have to change. I mean, this is a big thing because middle managers in a lot of ways have learned to be the checkers, right? So we're really working with middle managers to change their role so that they're really getting rid of the barriers that people experience, that they're providing resources. And I think it's getting clear at the individual level about, okay, where do I have decision rights? What can I make decisions about? Where do we need to decide? So there's a communication as a team about, do I need to inform you? The whole RACI model, right? Do I have responsibility? Do I take action? Do I communicate it? Where is our boundaries around that? But it's enabling people to really say, I can leave this. I can really move. And then there's places where we have interdependence. So there's independence and interdependence. We worked a lot with the shop floor in a pharmaceutical organization. And what we would find is that, let's say the line goes down. And often what would happen is that line worker who knew that machine, who's been working on it for maybe 20 years, often wouldn't even be asked what the problem is. The engineers would come in, right? Other people who we must have the knowledge. And when you have a leader in every seat, that line worker who has the information at least can be a valuable part of the decision-making process. And so what we found is, and when we worked in this one pharmaceutical company, their quality changed, their production changed because people at the front line could be leaders in their seats, could have voice, could be part of the decision-making process. And I think that's where we see such a difference in terms of output, in terms of production, in terms of people feeling like you can contribute. All of that matters.
Yeah.
I'm working with a client now that's a multi-billion-dollar client, and I'm interviewing everybody that reports to the CEO. And I'm asking them about their agency that they have. And basically the answer is all the decisions are made by the CEO. That we everything we think about, we have to take to him. And therefore what happens is if I know it's going to him, and then he asks them minute detail, like what happened in 2919, just details that are beyond the scope of what they're asking. So they over-prepare, meet, and he still comes up with some question they hadn't thought about. And so his position is they don't think about everything. I need to basically micromanage them. And they're thinking, we have to spend a whole lot of time getting prepared for him, and we never have it all, and therefore we have to over-prepare. Another group of people say, he's going to come up with the answer and tell us what to do anyhow. So we'll do some work on this, but we're not going to try to figure it all out because he's going to tell us the answer. So you got one group kind of over-functioning, but then feeling disappointed because they can never come up with everything he's going to think about. And then another group that says, we'll kind of half-ass do this. And then he'll tell us what he wants to do, and we can do that. This is a multi-billion-dollar company.
Wow.
The cost of that is immense.
Wow. It's I can never get off this one rant. It's instinct versus logic. Everything you're saying is logical. Right. And yet our instinct is pushing us in the other way. I remember, as a kid going, I'm maybe 13 years old, somebody told me, when you buy a stock, you want to buy it when it's low and then sell it when it's high. And I thought, well, that makes sense. And then I said, problem is no one actually does that. And, it was my first introduction to instinct versus logic. But that's why this has to be sold a bit. It's because it's all logical, but you can see that fear of change start coming up. Why now? Why is the individual and team agency important now? I mean, it's harder given the times we're living in, it appears, to create any type of change. But why now?
So I want to come back to your stock thing because I love stocks.
Okay.
I bought Apple early. Apple was a client of ours for a while in its early days. And I bought it the stock. And then it went high and I sold it. It's gone up probably 100 times since then. so what is high? And when and I had a broker that said, if something goes up 10 or 20%, that's when you should sell it because you made money. Who knew it would go up like 3,000%?
Right.
So why now?
Yeah.
One big piece is knowledge workers. One that we are wasting them. We're underutilizing them. We're losing them. I'm afraid for our organizations. Competition in the world is getting more competitive. And we used to have people come into work. My father worked for the same company for 35 years. I worked for Connecticut General Life Insurance Company, now called Cigna, for 14 years. I felt like a failure when I left after only 14 years. People now are saying, this doesn't work for me. I'm out of here. Some people are quitting doing orientation because orientation doesn't give them what they need. So we got knowledge workers. We're not treated as knowledge workers. The price is high. Our companies need to be more competitive ever, ever, ever. And we need the best and the brightest to be inside our organizations. A lot of the best and the brightest rather go online and start a business or sell merchandise and not be in our organizations. I want them to do that, bless them, but we got to have our best and our brightest also inside of our organizations. So we got to change how our organizations are functioning because nobody wants to be micromanaged.
Right.
And many people don't even want to work for an organization. So you got to convince them that that's okay, but they'll be more okay if they feel entrepreneurial in their organization. That I have space, I bring my talent, they listen to me. It doesn't take us. I have a client that when they start a project and they start doing the approval process could take them 3 months. I'm not joking. It's incredible. Everybody, they send out, here's what we're going to do. Give us your feedback. They get their feedback. They change everything everybody said. They send it back out. And now people give them new feedback they didn't give the first time. So it's indefinite. So one of it is, how do we keep the talent in our organizations so our organizations can be the best?
Yeah. I would say also two other things is I think the pandemic changed a lot of things for people in terms of saying, what do I really want in terms of work, life, and me? And saying, like, I'm not going to go through what my parents went through. I'm not going to go through what other people have gone through, or I want to have more of a life. I see that that's important. So I think that changed the dynamics as people face life and death in fundamental ways. And then I think that Gen Z just has a whole other way of thinking about work. Work is not their life. Life is life. And then there's work. And so the question is, I'm going to make it work for me. And I think that's another part of the dynamic, in addition to everything what Fred said in terms of knowledge workers, in terms of saying, organizations, we are in this major, major transformational shift in terms of what is work, just like as we did, from going from an agrarian society to industrial revolution. And so, with AI coming and speed and all of that, I think, Fred always talks about how AI is tapping its toes saying, get on with it already. Come on, I can make a decision in 3 seconds and you're taking 3 months. So I think all of these factors together are saying why agency is even more important. And then, when we worry about waste, the biggest waste is the fact that you got to wait till the CEO makes a decision. This is waste. So that is not helping us in organizations. And people are saying, I want to contribute. I do not want to waste my time. We're looking at people who are quitting their jobs, even when the job market is tough, because of saying, like, if I can't contribute, I don't want to be here. This is not who I am.
Yeah, I think another factor is that when the baby boomers, for many of us, the goal was, I need to make more money than my parents made. And I have a world that's going to allow me to do that. Many of the children of baby boomers are not going to make as much money as the baby boomers made. So instead of them having, I want the money, and therefore I'm going to sacrifice myself and my life to achieve a certain standard of living, to achieve a certain income, they're like, that's not the game. It's no game. I'm not sure I can even win that game. What I can do is quality of life.
Yeah.
And so as Judith said, how am I living my life? And I saw my parents devote their lives to work, and look where they are. And so I don't want that for me, because one thing about all that was they weren't around as much as I wanted them to be around me.
Right. Yeah. You hit a lot of things. And Judith, I was going to go at that generational piece because I really think that's sort of the elephant in the room of, we also have a different employer. Fred, I've got my dad's 50-year New York Life watch that I wear when I go on seminars and go on the road. It's very precious to me. I was in the same boat. I thought you work with a company, you stay, and they give you a watch at the end. And I'm a boomer, okay? So I'm already a few generations on. So all that really resonates with me. Help me with this, though.
I had my father's gold watch in my closet.
There you go. Yeah, I take it out on special occasions.
Exactly.
It means a lot in many different ways for me. I'm used to hearing the word empowerment, okay? I felt like that was the buzzword.
Yep.
How do agency and empowerment differ? Or maybe they're the same-ish?
Actually, our publisher asked that same question. It's like, how are these different? I think empowerment is often bestowed on someone. I'm going to empower you. All those training programs about empowerment, right? I'm going to give people empowerment, or I'm going to empower you to do X. We believe that agency is inherent. It's like the toddler. It gets taken away, it gets smothered, it gets stepped on, but it's there. And I think it's uncovering it, unleashing it. We really think it's cultivating it. But I think that's really the difference, is that I'm creating the context around which you can have and unleash that agency, but you've got it. And now you may have to do some self-work on yourself, because, you don't believe in yourself anymore. I mean, we've all gotten those messages about what you can and cannot do, but it's there. And we think that empowerment is really something that a manager bestows on you, or someone else bestows on you.
Got it.
And so, that we see those as they're connected, but they're not the same.
Got it. All right. Now, you're dealing with a sales trainer. Okay. So I'm actually fascinated by this. It's strange. It's been a wonderful conversation, but my ears really perked up when I thought, boy, this really has to be sold in certain ways. And I know that in working with, 33 years with a zillion different customers, doesn't matter whether, and I've worked with NASA and Toyota, and, so I'm just kind of giving you a spectrum. They all deal with the same issue, which is fear of change. So we have to sell these organizations a little bit. Maybe we start there. What do organizations gain from addressing agency, individual and team agency?
Go first, Judith, if you want.
Oh,
Sure.
Sell it to me, Judith. Sell it to me.
Okay. I mean, for us, and what we've seen is, do you want higher performance? Bottom line. Do you want everybody being able to contribute? Do you want to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse? Do you want to be able to see that people can bring their ideas to the organization? And so, whether we've worked with a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical organization where they have increased their quality, their performance, their output, whatever, when people can contribute, you see a difference. And I think that's really what the selling point is. We're not doing this for change's sake. We're not doing this just to make people feel good. It's not about that. It's really about connecting to mission, vision, and strategy of the organization. And, I'll give an example. We worked with a zoo in Florida. And one of the things is, before they started this work on agency, people were not, like, if something was wrong in another area, they wouldn't say anything. It's not my job. Stay in my silo. I'll stay in my lane. Don't worry about it. As they began to work, people would go to a town hall meeting. Crickets. Nobody would say anything. As they began to do this work, people see something, they do something. As they began to work together across those departments, they created a different kind of environment for everybody. Where they had trouble getting volunteers, now people wanted to volunteer to help and support the zoo because they felt like the atmosphere was different. And people in the town halls would raise questions, raise issues, talk to the executive director in ways that never before had happened, even if a board member was in the room. So they felt that freedom to speak up, and they felt that interaction safety to be able to say what they thought. And in addition to that, managers would start saying to people, you have $500 in your budget to do what you need to do. I trust that you'll make a good decision. So there's so many ways in which they had decision rights, in which they started to be able to make better decisions, where they addressed issues as they happened and didn't wait for somebody. The whole atmosphere changed, and they attracted not only more guests to the zoo because people could feel it, but they also attracted more volunteers that they desperately needed if they were going to be able to do the programs that they wanted to. That's just one example. There are many, many, many others.
Good. Fred, you want to throw one on top of that?
Did I sell it to you? Did I sell it to you, Rob?
Oh, yeah, you're doing really well.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm gonna try and sell it back to you in a second. I want to hear Fred's.
I think almost all the organizations we're interacting with, the CEO, the leaders need more from the organization. That we're in a time when the bar is going up high and fast. And so how do we get higher performance of the organization? It's not drive your people more. It's give your people the agency to be able to add their value added to the organization. Many, many people in organizations feel underutilized or feel overthink, or they feel overchecked or overmanaged. So really need to give people the ability to act in our organizations. The other thing is that a lot of organizations, the interactions are poor. People are not building on one another. They're not trusting one another. They're not collaborating. We talk a lot about collaboration, but a lot of organizations, they're vertical. I got mine, you got yours. This silo thing's got to die. It's killing organizations. I'm here, you're there. I've seen organizations where somebody from another department comes in, and they say, shh, we better be careful what we say. That person's from the other department. It's crazy making. We're in the same organization. So one, letting people have that agency, act, not check, do, get clear about where the parameters are, create some guardrails, and let people go. Let them go. Let them be entrepreneurial inside the organization. And the other is the collaboration, the partnership, the bringing teams together. I mean, when I talk about people about waste in organizations, the number one area of waste is meetings. People are dying in meetings. I make a joke sometime that if you look up all the definitions in the world of a leader, not one definition will say a leader is a person who goes to meetings all the time. Not one. But right. What are leaders doing? Going to meetings. They got to get out with their people. They got to have thinking time. Yeah. We call it on the porch and a rocking chair time. Right. They got to be able to interact and see and whatever. I have a client. He said, we got to get the leader out on the floor and meet people and say hi. And not come out and say what you did wrong, but just connect with people so people are motivated. So all those things are just part of the.
You got a lot there. Oh, by the way, I used to teach meetings at Xerox, and we were very process-oriented in our meetings. And I would add that a leader is one who realizes they don't have to lead every meeting. They can attend the meeting and empower or provide agency for others to lead the meeting so they can develop their skills. But I digress. I'm going to throw a thought at you because, Judith, you threw the gauntlet at me. You said, how did I do it? I said, well, I'll take a shot. You know, when I give a presentation, and I think we'll do this in 20 seconds, I'm really after three things. I never know really what the buzz will be for the individual I'm trying to sell. In other words, to me, it always comes down to three things. How it will help an individual personally, how it will help that individual on the job, and how it will help the organization. Now, typically, the CEO in the back focused on the organization, okay? A lot of the people in the middle are focused on how does this help me personally? But when I look at what you've done, and I see that, well, first of all, individually, you're going to feel more empowered, and well, I'm not even going to use the word empowered. You're going to just feel a more rewarding experience, and that tends to carry itself to home as well. When you feel good at work, you feel good at home. By the way, for you on your job, I think you're going to be able to develop a little bit quicker and maybe learn a little bit more and feel more connected to the organization. And the CEO in the back, who I'm not pointing at, take a look at what it costs to hire and then lose an employee and hire another one if your focus is on the bottom line. Fred, you said sometimes we lose people in orientation. That's an expensive loss. And so all three elements are really being addressed with what you've written about here. And like I said, I never know which of the three the person in front of me needs to hear. So I hit all three for him.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, just a thought back at you.
I'll take it.
Okay. In your book, go ahead, Fred. You were going to say something?
Yeah, because you were stimulating me, and I'm sure Judith's got a comment too. So we have a new client. Okay. I'm going to see them in a couple of weeks, and they got a bunch of things that aren't functioning as well as they need to function. And I'm having them, I'm going to interview the supervisors and managers that they see as high performers. And what I want to listen to is one, what's getting in their way? And two, how committed are they? Are they thinking long-term of this organization or not? With that data, I can go to the leader and say, you gave me to talk to your best people. And here's what they said. And here's where you're at risk. That often will get the leader's attention. So how do we frame it? How do we do it? And if I go in and they all say we're good, I'm doing what I can, I'm cheering for them. I always say, I want good news. I'm not trying to get bad news. I like to hear, yay, company, go.
Yeah.
but that's not the world we live
That's
in
kind of
today.
rough. That's a rough number to hear. What I do, just throwing back at you, is first of all, I think we have to earn the right to get at what's not working with an organization. So I'm here to listen and ask questions. But when I'm hunting something down as a salesman, and I'm trying to transition to, okay, I hear what's working. Now maybe we can talk about what's not working. That's difficult for some organizations. So a question you might want to ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate back? And even if we get an 8.5 or a 9, I'm always curious what's keeping it from being a 10. And
Mhm.
therein, now we've entered into a conversation, and that's all we want, right?
I
Not
agree.
everybody's a prospect, but I've really not met a whole lot of companies that are operating across the board 10 out of 10. And if they are, their nose is growing a little bit
You're
as they're
singing
answering
my
the
song.
question.
You're singing my song. We do 0 to 10 scales all the time.
Right,
And,
good.
And
and I
so,
think that's why we talk about betterment, because
Yeah.
it's questioned about how do you stay ahead of the competition? How do you stay high performing? So, are you happy with an 8? We consider 8 to 10 a high performing, but there still may be room to grow. And we also believe that people in the organization have the knowledge and the wisdom of what needs to change
Right.
because they're in it. And particularly new people. New people see it with fresh eyes. So if you can tap into how they're seeing it, the high performers, as Fred said, you've got an amazing opportunity to grow the organization.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to cost you that much because the knowledge is there. So that's the exciting part.
Let's the three of us write a book, and we'll call it 8 out of 10 isn't good enough. Okay. Now it's about to 50, 60,000 words, but okay, we've got to start. Uh, you in your book, you equip readers with a 10-step roadmap to unleash agency. All right, we're not going to do all 10 steps, but let's cherry pick a little bit. Okay. Give me one or two that maybe this audience can listen to and gravitate towards.
I mean, you got to start with the organization deciding this is going to help us,
Okay.
right? Leaders got to decide this is going to make us better. This is going to be critical, and it's worth investing the time, the resources, the energy that it's going to take because everybody's going to have to change. Everybody's going to have to learn some new skills, So that's the first steps. Like you got to create that sense of why is this important and how does it fit with our mission, strategy, and vision. Period. That's the first thing. I think then we like to do is what we call a from to, is like what's the current state and where are we going to? And then that gives you a way to measure kind of progress over time. And you got to enroll a group of people who are really going to help lead this in a way that's showing what unleashing agency actually is. So it's kind of like creating a pocket of readiness or an experimental group that can actually play with these ideas. You don't have to just get everybody in the organization at once trying to do it, but getting a smaller group of people who learn about agency, can see it being unleashed, and be able to show in their day-to-day interactions and work that this is going to actually matter. So you're actually creating like a new narrative, and you're creating an experiment that says this can work. So those would be some of the key steps that I would say. And Fred will
and I would say between those two, it's what I'm going to do next week is kind of talk to people and see if they are ready to take on organization being better. Are they ready to be agents of change in the organization? Is there enough dissatisfaction in the organization that people are willing to push, take risk to try to make a change? Because I've been in clients where the leaders may want to change. When I talked to the people in the organization, there was no energy around changing. I was like, come back when there's more energy, because we don't want to be pushing uphill around this. We want to be helping facilitate what people want, not making them have to change. Now, I don't need 100% of the people on that page, but I surely need 10 to 20% of the people when we start saying, I am dissatisfied. I am willing to put energy into making this different so I can be more satisfied. And so the leaders, yeah, got to have that. But I got to have some people throughout the organization that are feeling that, because they have to be the front edge of the change process and living the new behaviors and mindsets.
I think I know the answer to this question, but I just want to hear it said out loud. Uh, who's the tougher sale, the employee or the manager?
That's a hard one. I think the employee has a pain factor that could make them not a tough sale at all. But there are also some employees who Judah kind of call status quo agents, who like, I'm happy. They don't bother me. I don't have to sweat at work. And I think keeping things the way they are, I've been around here. I paid my dues. These people who are not satisfied haven't paid their dues. So I don't know why you're even listening to them. So just leave me alone, leave us alone. And I got that nice little bundle of money when I leave the organization. So that's a hard sell. That's like leader, CEO. You got some people who are not even on the page of making this place differently.
Yeah, the other group of people that we've seen, and it's heartbreaking sometimes, is people who have trusted the organization about change and were totally disappointed because the organization didn't carry through on it. And they're like, so they're saying like, I've been there, I've done that, I'm not trying it again. You broke my heart once, I'm not coming back for another. And so I think there's some employees that are really concerned about, getting hopes up that things could be different, and they're not. What we found with senior leaders, if you've got a senior leader who's really committed, they can be great catalysts and really help. But you might have some of their colleagues who are less willing to change. So, you might have a champion out there who's really sees the possibilities. And sometimes you may have to work in that unit or with that leader to show and demonstrate that change is possible or that betterment is possible. And I think then that can sometimes permeate to others. But I remember one leader who said, this is a tombstone. There's some language we use in terms of inclusive behaviors around. This is a tombstone. We are moving. We're making this change. You can get on the train or you can get off the train, but this train's going because we see it as being critical to the organization and success. And so when you get a leader like that, it's helpful for sure.
Yeah, certainly eye-opening. It's interesting as a corporate trainer. If I could go back decades, I tap myself on the shoulder and say, listen, you can't just mouth the word implementation. You're going to have to teach your companies how to protect the investment that they're making. I think it's a responsibility to us. I think it's still part of our story because you've nicked it. The term we use is flavor of the month syndrome, okay? Where the employees say, sounds like a great idea, but it's always a little uncomfortable making the change. And by the time we make it, we move on to another flavor. So, how do we, for extra credit, I love the concept. And now I'm the employer and I go, you had me at hello. How do we protect this? How do I make sure that we can implement this?
I mean, a couple of things that Judith will add to them. One is we don't do cold calls. So somebody out there in the world has decided we can be helpful to them. And because we want to be involved in a change betterment effort, we expect to be working with a client from 2 to 3 years. So if we're doing 2 or 3 years, then we mitigate some of what you just talked about, because we are there not only starting the intervention, collecting the data, getting clear, we're training and educating people. We're there on the job with them, suggesting behaviors that would make the situation better. We call it presence consultants. We worked with United Airlines. We were at all the major hubs, but we're at United. We couldn't pull people off the line to go to training classes. So we sent the consultants to the line and they would do training in motion with people. It was wonderful. We use it all the time. It's called presence consultant. And so we want to make sure that we're seeing people apply the behaviors in action on their job. So it's not one company, one client called us and said, what I like about what you're talking about is that consultants come all the time and they train us and they leave, and then we're stuck with trying to figure out how to implement it. You're talking about you're not going to leave, you're going to stay with us and make sure we know how to apply what you're doing. That makes a major difference in it. But again, it's the long-term commitment that the leaders have to make at the beginning that says, and then when we get resistance in the organization, it's like, we're not going away. We're going to be here for 3 years. You may not be here for 3 years, but we're going to be here for 3 years. And we're going to be about making this change, and this is going to happen.
The other thing I'd say is embedding it in systems and processes is critical. So, for example, in a lot of organizations, all of a sudden now there's new criteria for what it means to get promoted. There's new criteria for what you're looking for in hiring people. So, it's all of a sudden saying we want people who can unleash agency in others, who know how to manage the conversation, the boundaries, the development of their people. And so it's really making it systemically part of it and upscaling people in the organization enough that they have the skills to carry that forward. So it's not like when we leave, the skills leave. No, it's embedded in the organization that this is the way in which we operate.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about the checklist that are in our book.
Yes. I mean, as a starting point, one of the things we have is a checklist for every level of the organization, from individual, team managers, supervisors, senior leaders, and HR and policies and systems. So you can at least see, where do we have some opportunity to grow? Where do we need to change? What do I need to do individually? What do we need to do together? So it really begins to get the basis for the dialogue. But systemically, we also have to measure it. It's got to be part of our measures as well. So it connects all of those dots.
Right. Makes sense. Fred, you're getting a little too comfortable here. I'll be the one asking the questions if you don't mind. See, that's what happens when you have a repeat guest on. He starts taking, Rob, I got it. Now, Judith, okay. It's interesting because I was working for Xerox in the 80s when we were installing quality. And every company, we stopped even using, many companies stopped using the word because it was the poster child of makes sense. We'll install it and not implement it. And then we don't even use the words. We'll just call it process reengineering or something else. So, but Xerox, we were masters at implementation. And I think that's what separated us. Our sales process that we taught wasn't necessarily genius, but it was a condition of employment. It was the way we did business. You could be 200% a plan. If you're not following our process, you're not working with our company. And once a company realizes that, oh, this is a culture, this isn't a training class, this is the way we do business.
Right on.
You got it. And love the fact that you're there with them. I even in my business, listen, this COVID and the virtual communications, everything, there's some really tough things about it, but I love it from a virtual team coaching session where I can tend to the garden that we've been planting here. So whether we've got people online or wherever, our job as consultants is never done when a training program has been completed.
Right.
I think it's just beginning, actually, when you think about it.
And we don't like to think of ourselves as trainers. We really think of ourselves as providing education, developing skills, and really it's the systems work that's really so critical.
And we consider ourselves a partner with our clients, that they have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of understanding, they know a lot about the system. We're bringing some experiences that we've had other places, how we might apply it. It's a collaboration, it's a partnership, it's us working together. We need their wisdom so that we can be successful.
All right, you hit it on the head. It's a partnership. Agency, cultivating autonomy, authority, and leadership in every role. How's that book doing?
It's doing well. We're getting very, very good reviews. It's won a few book awards, which we're really pleased about. And our clients are loving it, and it's getting good press.
Well, watch this. Watch the magic of Pocket Sized Pep Talks, because we had a guest on, a Barrett Kohler author on a couple weeks ago, who got 25 reviews within 24 hours of this show. So attention, Pocket Sized Pep Talk people. Let's get on this book. Let's take a look at it. You've got two amazing authors, a really interesting and valuable concept. Let's not just get the book. Let's write some reviews on that book. Let's bump it up. Let's get Amazon to say, oh boy, we can't turn our back on this one, and really get some good reviews on this thing.
Love it. Thank you.
Hey, let me tell you, I'm very careful now. I'll get 3 or 4 guest requests a day at this point. I'm very careful of who we put on. I want to make sure that the message is right. And this is a really important book. I hope people go out and get it. I wish when I was in Xerox and CSC and some of the companies I worked for, I would have eaten this up. I wanted this. I wanted agency, but I was pushed back a lot. So guess what happens to people like me? We leave. We become entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
We'll do it ourselves. Thank you. But I would have gotten that gold watch at Xerox if I had agency. I really do believe it. I just didn't know the word at the time. Any case.
No, it was.
How do people get a hold of you guys?
KJCG.com, Khalil Jameson Consulting Group, the first letter of each of those. And that's our website. That's the easiest way to get in contact with us. And there's a lot of information there. We also often, I send out essays about what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking. Just sent out one recently to about 500 people. So if somebody wants to be on that mailing list, just again, contact us through our website and we'll get you on it. We share what we're thinking, what's around the corner, what some of the challenges are, and some helpful hints that people can start practicing immediately. Yeah. Again, kjcg.com.
What about a LinkedIn newsletter for you too?
We're on LinkedIn. We haven't done a newsletter. We could post those, you could post those newsletters on there too, Fred.
Yeah, I went to a marketing workshop put on by a publisher called Barrett Kohler, and I heard a social media expert talk, and they went through every single piece, and they said to him, I like this guy because he didn't mince his words. They said, what's the best bang for the buck? The answer, instantly, LinkedIn newsletter. I started one myself, and every single time it goes up and I get my report from LinkedIn, nothing gets more eyes on it than my LinkedIn newsletter. So I'm telling you too right now, this is too important. Let's get that newsletter going and we can talk offline some more about that. Let me say online, pleasure meeting you, Judith.
Thank you.
Good seeing you again, even though you tried to take over the show. I appreciated your questions and comments. But really, wonderful seeing you too. Wish you nothing but success with this book. And just a pleasure talking to you again.
Thank you. You're always great and wonderful. And I'm one of your biggest fans.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Judith. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.